So, hello and welcome back to my channel. And today we're going to start our continuation of the chapter on the Delhi Sultanate second. So, we're going to start with the decline and disintegration of the Delhi Sultanate, Firuz and his successors. During the latter half of Muhammad Tughlaq's reign, there were repeated rebellions in different parts of the empire. Rebellions by ambitious nobles, particularly in the outlying areas, were not a new feature. In most cases, the sultans had been able to suppress them with the help of central army and a band of noble, loyal nobles. Muhammad Tughlaq's difficulties were several. The rebellions took place one after another in different parts of the empire, in Bengal, in Malabar, Tamil Nadu, in Warangal, in Kampili, Karnataka, in West Bengal, in Awadh, in Gujarat and Sindh. So like he was covered from all of these sides. Muhammad Tughlaq did not rush anyone, at least not sufficiently, so he dashed from one part of the country to the other to suppress the rebellions and wore out his armies. The rebellions in South India were the most serious. At first, rebellions in these areas were organized by the local governors. The Sultan hurried to South India. After some time, plague broke out in the army. We are told that two-thirds of the army perished in this plague. This was a blow from which Mughal Tughlaq could never recover. Soon after the return of the sultans from South India, there was another rebellion there, led by two brothers, Harihara and Bukka. They set up a principality which gradually expanded. This was the Vijayanagar Empire, which soon embraced the entire south. Further north in the Deccan, some foreign nobles set up a principality near Daulatabad, which expanded into the Bahmani Empire. We shall trace the achievements of these two remarkable empires in a subsequent chapter. Bengal also became independent. With a great effort, Muhammad Tughlaq was able to quell the rebellions in Awadh, Gujarat, and Sindh. While still in Sindh, Muhammad Tughlaq died and was succeeded by his cousin Firuz Tughlaq. So we could see that Muhammad Tughlaq's contemporaries in the south were Harihara and Bukka, who eventually established the Vijayanagar Empire, which was expanding towards the south. And in the Daulatabad Principality, there was an expansion of the Bahmani Empire during Muhammad Tughlaq's reign. After Muhammad Tughlaq died, he was succeeded by his cousin Firuz Tughlaq. Muhammad Tughlaq's policies had created deep discontent among the nobles as well as in the army. He had also clashed with Muslim theologians and the Sufi saints who were very influential, but the unpopularity of Muhammad Tughlaq should not be exaggerated. Even when he was away from the capital for long periods, the administration in Delhi, the Punjab, and other parts of the empire in North India continued to function normally. After his accession, Firuz Tughlaq was faced with the problem of preventing the imminent breakup of the Delhi Sultanate. He adopted a policy of trying to appease the nobles, the army, and the theologians, and of asserting his authority over only such areas which could be easily administered from the center. He therefore made no attempt to reassert his authority over South India and the Deccan. He led two campaigns into Bengal but was unsuccessful in both. Bengal was thus lost to the Sultanate. Even then, the Sultanate continued to be as large as it was during the early years of the reign of Alauddin Khalji. Firuz led a campaign against the ruler of Jajanagar, Odisha. He desecrated the temples there and gathered rich plunder but made no attempt to annex Odisha. He also led a campaign against Kangra in the Punjab hills. His longest campaign were to deal with the rebellions in Gujarat and Thatta. Although the rebellions were crushed, the army suffered great hardship due to losing its way in the run of Kutch. Thus, Firuz was by no means a distinguished military leader, but his reign was a period of peace and of quiet development. He decreed that whenever a noble died, his son should be allowed to succeed to his position, including his ikta, and if he had no son, his son-in-law, and in his absence, his slave. Firuz abolished the practice of torturing nobles and their officials if any balance was found against them at the time of auditing the accounts of their ikta. These steps pleased the nobles and was a major factor for the absence of the rebellions by the nobles, with the minor exception of one in Gujarat and in Thatta. However, in the long run, the policy of making officers and ikta hereditary was bound to be harmful. It reduced the chance of competent men being recruited into the service outside a small circle and made the Sultan dependent on a narrow oligarchy. oligarchy. Firuz extended the principality of heredity to the army as well. Old soldiers were allowed to rest in peace and to send in their place their sons or son-in-laws, and if they are not available, their slaves. The soldiers were not to be paid in cash but by assignments on the land revenue of villages. This meant that the soldier either had to go to the village to collect his salary and absent himself from service, or to give the assignment to some middleman who would give him half or one third of his value. Thus, the soldier did not benefit in the long run. The entire military administration became lax, and soldiers were allowed to pass useless horses at the muster by bribing the clerks. In a mistaken view of generosity, the Sultan himself once gave money to a soldier to bribe the clerk of the master. Firuz tried to win over the theologians by claiming that he was a true Muslim king and that the state under him was truly Islamic state. Although, actually, right from the time of Iltutmish's accession to the throne, there was a tussle between the Orthodox theologians and the sultans regarding the nature of the state and the policy to be adopted by the state towards the non-Muslims. As had been stated earlier, from the time of Iltutmish and especially under Alauddin and Muhammad Tughlaq, the Turkish rulers did not allow the theologians to dictate the policy of the state. They waged jihad against the Hindu rulers whenever it was convenient for them to do so. In order to keep the theologians satisfied, a number of them were appointed to high offices. The judiciary and the educational system, of course, remained in the hands of the theologians. Despite outer trappings and appearances, Firuz followed the policy of his predecessors in essentials. There is no reason to believe that he allowed the theologians to dictate the state policy, but he gave them a number of but he gave a number of important concessions to the theologians. He tried to ban practices which the Orthodox theologians considered as un-Islamic. Thus, he prohibited the practice of Muslim women going out to worship at the graves of saints. He persecuted a number of Muslim sects which were considered heretical by the theologians. It was during the time of Firuz that jizya became a separate tax. So this has to be remembered that it was during Firuz Tughlaq's reign that jizya became a separate tax. Earlier, it was a part of land revenue. Firuz refused to exempt the Brahmanas from the payment of jizya since this was not provided for it in the Sharia. Only women, children, disabled, and the indigent who had no means of livelihood were exempt from it. Worse, he publicly burnt a Brahman for preaching to the people, including Muslims, on the ground that it was against the Sharia. On the same ground, he even ordered that the beautiful wall paintings in his palace be erased. However, he patronized music and, despite his orthodoxy, was fond of wine. So it was like they only patronized the things which ever they wanted, and it was not just based on the words of the theologians. It is just based on the will of the Sultan. Like whatever he willed, he would do it, even though it is against the theologians. These narrow views of Firuz Tughlaq were certainly harmful. At the same time, Firuz Tughlaq was the first ruler who took steps to save Hindu religious works translated from Sanskrit into Persian so that there may be better understanding of Hindu ideas and practices. Many books on music, medicine, and mathematics were also translated from Sanskrit into Persian during his reign. Firuz also took a number of humanitarian measures. He banned inhuman punishments such as cutting off hands, feet, nose, etc. for theft and other offences. He set up hospitals for free treatment of the poor and ordered the kotwals to make the list of unemployed persons. He provided dowries for the daughters of the poor. It is likely that these measures were basically designed to help Muslims of good families who had fallen into bad times. This again shows the limited nature of the state in India during the medieval times. However, Firuz did emphasize that the state was not meant merely for awarding punishments and collecting taxes, but was a benevolent institution as well. In the context of the medieval times, the assertion of this principle of benevolence was a valuable one, and Firuz deserved credit for it. Firuz was kindly interested in the economic improvement of the country. He set up a large department of public works, which looked upon after his building program. Firuz repaired and dug a number of canals. The longest canal was about 200 kilometers, which took off from the river Satluj to Hasi. Another canal took off from the Yamuna. These and other canals were meant for irrigation purposes and also for providing water to some of the new towns which Firuz built. These towns, Firuza or Hisar in modern Haryana and Firuzabad in modern Uttar Pradesh, exist even today. Another step which Firuz took was both economic and political in nature. He ordered his officials that whenever they attacked a place, they should select handsome and well born young boys and send them to the Sultan as slaves. In this way, Firuz gradually gathered about 180,000 slaves. Some of these he trained for carrying on various handicrafts and posted them in the royal workshops, karkhanas, all over the empire. From others, he formed a corps of soldiers who would be directly dependent on the Sultan and hence he hoped would be completely loyal to him. The policy was not a new one, as we have seen the early Turkish sultans in India had followed the practice of recruiting slaves, but experience had shown that these slaves could not be dependent on for their loyalty to the descendants of their masters, as that they soon formed a separate interest apart from the nobility. When Firuz died in 1388, the administrative and political problems which had to be faced after the death of every sultan came to the surface. The struggle for power between the sultan and the nobles started once again. The local zamindars and rajas took advantage of the situation to assume airs of independence. A new factor in the situation was the active intervention of the Firozi slaves and their attempt to put their own nominee on the throne. Sultan Muhammad, son of Firuz, was able to stabilize his position with their help, but one of his first steps was to break up the power of the slaves, killing and imprisoning many of them and scattering the rest. However, neither he nor his successor, Nasiruddin Mahmud, who ruled from 1394 to 1412, could control the ambitious nobles and the intransigent rajas. Perhaps the major reason for this were the reforms of Firuz, which had made the nobility too strong and army inefficient. The governors of the provinces became independent, and gradually the Sultan of Delhi was combined virtually to a small area surrounding Delhi. As a wit said, the dominion of the Lord of the Universe, being the title of the Sultans of Delhi, extends from Delhi to Palam. The weakness of the Delhi Sultanate was made even worse by Timur's invasion of Delhi in 1398. Timur, who was a Turk but could claim a blood relation with Changiz, had started his career of conquest in 1317 and gradually brought under his control the entire tract from Syria to Transoxiana and from southern Russia to the Indus. The raid into India was a plundering raid, and its motive was to seize the wealth accumulated by the sultans of Delhi over the last 200 years. With the collapse of the Delhi Sultanate, there was no one to meet this incursion. Timur's army mercilessly sacked and plundered the various towns on the way to Delhi. Timur then entered Delhi and sacked it without mercy. Large number of people, both Hindu and Muslims, as well as women and children, lost their lives. Timur's invasion once again showed the dangers facing weak government in the country. It resulted in the drain of large amount of wealth, gold, silver, jewelry, etc. from India. Timur also took with him a large number of Indian artisans such as masons, stone cutters, carpenters, etc. Some of them helped in putting up many fine buildings in his capital, Samarkand. He had adopted a similar policy in the case of many Iranian towns he had captured, but the direct political effect of Timur's invasion of India was small. The invasion of Timur may, however, be regarded as marking the end of the phase of strong rule by Delhi sultans Although the Tughlaq dynasty itself lingered on till 1412, the responsibility for the disintegration of the Delhi Sultanate cannot be ascribed to any one ruler. We have seen that there were some persistent problems during the medieval times, such as the relation between the monarch and the nobles, the conflict with the local rulers and zamindars, the pull of regional and geographical factors, etc. Individual rulers tried to cope with these problems, but none of them was in a position to effect fundamental changes in society to offset these perennial factors. Disintegration of the political fabric was just uh, disintegration of the political fabric was thus just beneath the surface, and any weakness in the central administration set off a chain of events leading to political disintegration. Firuz was able to contain the chain reactions which had set in during the overextension of the empire under Ghiyasuddin and Muhammad Tughlaq. He instituted a series of reforms aimed at appeasing the nobles and the soldiers, which, however, weakened the central machinery of administration as we have seen. The period from 1200 to 1400 saw many new features in India life, with the system of government, changes in the life and condition of the people, and the development of art and architecture. These will be the subject of another chapter. So, with this, we have come to an end of this longest chapter on the Delhi Sultanate second. I hope you would have liked this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Till then, see ya, bye.